Here I'm going to show the details of how to animate the scene when Neo kicks a pipe at Agent Smith and Agent Smith flies off backwards. I've loaded the Neo and Smith models. I modeled Agent Smith just like I modeled the Stan model, except his body is a little wider because he's played by Cartman. Switching to the 4-view layout, we're going to go to the first keyframe, which is frame 20. Here, we move Smith closer to Neo. For this animation, Agent Smith will begin by coming at Neo from the right, in an attempt to tackle him. In addition to moving him in closer, we will rotate his body slightly downwards, and his head slightly upwards. Once we're done positioning Agent Smith, we have to get the cylinder that represents the pipe, and move it down slightly. In the split second before Neo kicks it towards Smith, it will be falling. Since Neo will be moving in to kick the pipe, we also have to rotate him accordingly. The legs of these characters are very small, but rotating them will add to the effect. Also, since this character is leaning backwards and extending his foot, you've got to remember that in order to make it look realistic, you have to move his hands into the proper position to make them match the movement of his legs. Remember, you can add a great deal of realism to any character simply by knowing that they have a center of gravity just like humans do, and positioning their body parts accordingly. Effects such as throwing your left arm forward when you give a strong kick with your right leg may seem trivial, but if you do not include these small subconscious movements in your animations, your characters are almost guaranteed to move awkwardly. In this next keyframe, Neo has kicked the pipe, and it has flown through the air towards Smith. This is the exact moment when he is hit in the chest. We're going to open his arms slightly, showing that the force of the impact is about to throw him backwards. I'd recommend that every time you set a keyframe, you click the play button in order to take a look at what the animation looks like so far. Don't look for tiny details, simply verify the general movements of the characters and correct only large problems with their movements. After all the keyframes have been set up, then it is time to go back and modify the details of the animation, such as points of contact and the smoothness of function curves. Modifying function curves will be discussed in the bullet time chapter in detail. It isn't too necessary in an animation like this one, so don't worry about it for now. At keyframe 60, we move Smith backwards because the force of the impact has thrown him back. The pipe needs to be moved downwards. After bouncing off his chest and transferring all its kinetic energy towards him, it is left with no forward momentum and simply falls on the floor. Since Neo is done with his kick, we also reposition him in a more vertical stance. You'll notice clicking on perspective view doesn't reset the 4-view layout back to one large view. It simply sets one of the windows to perspective mode. Just go back to the standard views layout and rotate the view around until you see that you have a good angle on the animation. The best way to preview it is generally in solid view mode. We see in this view the animation has come out pretty well and the characters are moving realistically.